Over the past 27 years, today's guest, Mayra Rath, has guided thousands of people through past life regression and between lives hypnosis. She's trained with some of the biggest names in the field, including Marissa Peer, Dolores Cannon, and Dr. Brian Weiss. She's witnessed experiences that has completely changed the way she understands consciousness, healing, and the soul. If you've been following along this series, you'll know that 5 years ago, I had my past life regression session with Mayra. And in the last episode, you heard my sister Maddie experience her very first professional past life regression session. Today, in part 3 of our 3-part past life regression series, we're sitting down with the woman behind it all. We're talking about extraordinary, real-life sessions she's facilitated, the patterns that she's seen emerge after doing thousands of regression sessions, what she believes happens between lifetimes, and even why she eventually started working with people who believe they've experienced alien contact. Whether you believe these experiences are literal past lives, something happening deep within the subconscious, or you're simply curious about what people actually experience in these sessions, this conversation will leave you thinking about consciousness in a completely different way. So without further ado, here's my interview with past life regressionist, Mayra Rath. Also, it is so good to see you again, Mayra. It's been a while, but it's so good to see you again. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited about this series.
Me too.
If you haven't listened to part 1 and part 2, go listen to those. At this point, when we're releasing this episode, the listeners will have heard Maddie's past life regression session with you when Maddie had her spontaneous past life regression experience that was quite traumatic for her and very difficult for her to shake those memories 3 years out. And I was like, I really want to reach out to Mayra if I can interview her. And we had this idea, oh my gosh, what if we did this little series and she has a session with you and you see if you can access that life again. And so since that is really fresh in the listeners' minds, I wanted to get your perspective on that session with Maddie. Was there anything that stood out to you? Was it a typical session for you?
Yes, actually pretty typical.
Okay.
What happened with Maddie is, a lot of people will go on YouTube and do a past life regression on their own. And this sort of speaks to how that can be, I don't want to say dangerous, but it can really open up some more trauma, right? We obviously carry soul imprints, especially with the lives that are traumatic, how it's almost like PTSD, but you don't really understand it. You don't really know it. Your sister was experiencing a lot of anxiety. And so, sometimes it's not safe to do that. Some could be fun, but it can certainly open up a spiral that will leave you even more confused. And I think that's what happened with your sister. Although I don't think she did a recording. It just sort of happened.
Exactly.
Yes. And the fact that it did, I think she waited too long to address it because, see, she's good now.
I know.
She's good now. So it's very easy to reopen a particular life because your field already carries those memories. So it was really easy to slip her back in there. But to do it in a more gentle way, my goal for Maddie was to try to experience some more, lighter memories there before we work our way up to some of the trauma that was there. So, but How is she doing, by the way?
She's doing so good. I think that it gave her such a completely different outlook on it. The way she viewed that life it was so amazing. And I loved my life and I loved myself in that life. And I kind of want to go back there, which she even felt like that's really weird saying, but I just really liked that life. But then having her session with you, she saw it in a completely different light. And she felt afterwards, no, I actually don't want to go back there. And actually, it wasn't that great of a life. And I think it served its purpose. And so it's so fascinating to me how different perspectives, right? Like you can have a perspective on dynamics and relationships and how things are going. But when you see it almost from that bird's eye view, that higher self perspective, things look really different. And I think that you also shone a light on the whole life. In her spontaneous experience, she knew she was an orphan, but the way you walked her through, she actually felt the emotions and the experiences of what that was like and realized, actually, this is quite a dark life. And this wasn't that great. And actually my life now is a lot better. So I think she had a complete 180 shift and was able to let that go. So thank you so much for doing that for her and for agreeing to the session. Yeah, I think that it was incredible. It was really life-changing, honestly.
It is. Yeah. Past life regression therapy is life-changing.
Right.
And, it's so interesting. I work with a lot of therapists too. They recognize the value that, not all trauma sits today in this life. And with talk therapy, although it is important sometimes, and that's what happened with Dr. Brian Weiss, who is one of my teachers, where he was searching and searching and searching, trying to help his patient and taking her back even further, where the trauma was located. And all of a sudden, she was someone completely different. And he was not a believer of reincarnation. So, yeah, it's really interesting what we carry. We bring it like luggage. We
Right.
carry it like luggage with us.
Right. And so I'm curious, what percentage of people come to you for the therapy aspect of things where they're carrying something or they have anxiety or a phobia and they really want to figure that out and heal that? And how many people come to you just out of curiosity of, I'm just curious about a past life and I want to experience this?
Yeah, that's a great question because I would say probably 50% because some people understand that they absolutely want to come in. It's like, what's wrong with me? I have anxiety. I don't know what's going on. But even those that are curious, they think, I'm just going to do this for fun. They don't realize that the higher self says, yeah, no, this isn't going to be fun. We're fixing you today, right?
Mm,
They're always going to see what's relevant, what's most important. The higher self always chooses what is going to help you today, right? They know what your fears are, your patterns, your behaviors. So even when you're curious, you walk away healed.
right. And that was, the difference, I think, between my session and Maddie's is I was just curious. I didn't really know too much about it. And I learned a lot about my soul. And it was interesting how, because in mine, I was a drunk and it was a really gray life. And I've developed an allergy to alcohol when I was 25. So I haven't drank in over 11 years now. And the biggest blessing in disguise because I was not a good drinker in this lifetime. I had no off button. It was bad. I would black out and throw up and things like that. And so I'm curious, do you find that people have similarities between past lives, or if they had something traumatic happen in a past life, maybe they have a phobia in this life or an aversion or something like that?
Yes, most definitely. With you, it was almost like a habit. You probably brought it with you like a habit, but there was something maybe about your higher self says, no, you didn't come here to do this again, right? Your session, I don't remember it. So the
Fair.
fact,
It was
because
5 years
so
ago.
many years, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So thank you for reminding
Mhm.
me, but, it's almost like you self-corrected yourself, which is great.
That's what I
Right?
felt like. I felt like it was
Mhm.
divinely inspired and it gave me a lot
Yeah.
of understanding about that. Okay. And I one more question about Maddie's session. Have you had people come to you the way Maddie has, where maybe they have some sort of past life memory or they had a spontaneous past life regression and they're wanting to get back there, they're wanting to heal that? Is that something that you've dealt with before?
Yes. Yes. The answer is yes.
Okay.
But I don't know if this is the appropriate time to speak about the alien abduction therapy that I do, where my clients are coming to me with experiences that are happening in their bedrooms over their life, over time, and they're wanting to understand more. So
Okay.
yes, it's kind of like that where they're like, look, I know what I'm seeing.
Hmm.
I had this dream that three aliens were sent. It's not a dream, you know.
Right.
We don't have dreams that a couple of aliens are walking into your room. This is an imprint. This is something that goes beyond the visit. There is much more to the story. So
Okay.
I'm able to take them back to that memory to uncover what really happened that night.
Okay.
And also other nights that they don't even remember actually happened. So, yeah.
Wow, that is so fascinating. I'm excited to get into the alien abduction therapy of it all because I saw that on your website. I was like, this is so cool. But you know what, Mayra, why don't we start here? Where did this all begin? How did you get into past life regression therapy, or what drew you to this world?
Okay, so my father was a channel, a medium. He was a full body, unconscious trance channel. So I grew up in a very woo woo household, very, and almost like a secret because growing up, how do I share that my father can channel dead people, right?
I feel like he was
And
ahead of his time.
super ahead. And yeah, like I remember on my 12th birthday, they would have these, I hate to say the word seance. It wasn't. It was more, they would call it more like a mass, right? And it was tied to a religion, Santeria. Okay. My parents, we grew up Catholic, but my father went through a complete awakening back in the 70s. And back then, who do you go to when you are seeing through, hearing through the veil? You can now see every spirit guide, every loved one. And my father was losing it. And the only thing that was available, especially to a Latin family, was that religion, Santeria. And he got the support that he needed and discovered that he's a channel, full body, and it was almost instant. So they helped to kind of guide him through his gifts. And all of a sudden we're having these people coming over and my father's like a star and and me and my sisters, we would just kind of go off and play Barbies. But then little by little they start calling us into these meetings where all of a sudden he's channeling my deceased grandmother and she's wishing me a happy birthday through him. His voice would change, all of that. So yeah, it was like, what is happening right now?
Right.
But over time, we just got used to it, right?
Hmm.
But my father and I would always have pretty deep conversations. I think when I was old enough to start to, and he wanted to talk and tell me what's real, right? And I think I was about 13 years old when he told me about reincarnation. And when he told me that, I remember us being alone and having that conversation. And for me, it was like, that totally makes sense. It just sort of clicked. And I wondered, gosh, I wonder who I am. So once he planted the seed, I was always very curious. But in the late 90s, maybe 95, 96 is when I read Many Lives, Many Masters. It was the very first book I ever read. And I was just enthralled with what happened, never really knowing that I would be doing this work, right? And then in 1998, my brother said, let's go to this retreat. They're going to be doing hypnosis and past lives. And we went. It was at the convention center. It was an entire weekend. And yeah, there were people there. It was like, wow, all these people believe in reincarnation. Still not at all what it is now.
Mm.
Um, they had different rooms with different types of hypnosis. They had the spoon bending, they had comedy, stage hypnosis, and then the hypnotherapy. So it was brought upon the American Board of Hypnotherapy. And we spent the entire weekend being regressed by Dick Setfen, who was a true pioneer, had written many, many books on the subject of past lives. And they were selling their curriculum. They were trying to enroll students. And I told my brother, I want to do this. I was pretty young, right? But I still wanted to do it. So I did. I enrolled and I received my certificate like a year later, here you go, right? Now go get them, right? And it's like, now what do I do? What do I do with this?
Right.
And especially back then, there's no social media. This is 1999 now. And I just wanted to practice. So, honestly, over time, it was almost like this parlor trick. Anytime I would approach someone about it, it was very, people just didn't believe. They were scared. People are still scared. They're still afraid to look and see who I've been, where I've been. So it just took time. It really took time. It was something that I did on the side for many, many, many years. And then it just really evolved in 2018. It took, where I can at least do it part-time.
Okay. And what shifted in 2018?
Word of mouth.
Okay.
Word of mouth. Yeah, word of mouth. I was a freelance makeup artist and I was traveling a lot, meeting a lot of people in 2018. And when you're up close and personal, people want to talk. And 2018, yeah, people were pretty open. And so it just started shifting. And through that, it sort of spread through the beauty world. Okay.
I love it.
And yeah. So I was like able to kind of do both. And it was wonderful because for some time I did trades too, where it's like skincare, right? And sometimes people would bring $500-$700 worth of skincare to me and in exchange for a session. I'm all about it.
Amazing.
Okay?
Yep.
I mean, these
Sign me
are
up.
big brands. These
Yes.
are big brands. Yes. Big brands. And, yeah, so that was a lot of fun, but it was 2020 that completely shifted me to full time.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love that. The amount of people who got on their spiritual journey or like fully committed, even myself included, at 2020, when you're just kind of like, okay, what else am I doing? Why am I doing this? What do I really want to be doing? And then also so many people being online. I think that's actually how we connected, is you connected with me on TikTok and we
Yes.
did a bit of an exchange originally. You really took advantage of a boom, right? Of people being online and going on TikTok and going on Instagram and learning about this kind of stuff and being able to connect with people all over the world who are into your niche,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. And I do, work with global clients. I'm able to adjust the time to accommodate. I work with a lot of people in Australia too. And it's nice because they get Saturday sessions.
Right, because it's
If they
Friday for
book on
you.
Friday.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yes, it's been really wonderful.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love it. That's so fascinating. So it was something that was part-time, but it kind of never left you. It was always a curiosity, and it sounds like it also runs in the family. So you're meant to be doing this.
I absolutely meant to be doing this. Yes. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
So let's talk about those early days. Is there an experience that you had doing this past life regression that shifted things for you where you said, what is going on here? Like, this is something big.
Yeah. So I've had many teachers along the journey, right? Many, many teachers. And now I'm actually teaching as well. So all of these, masters of past life regression have their own way, their own technique. Dick Setfen showed you one way, but it wasn't until I did the past life regression therapy with Dr. Brian Weiss that really showed me the therapy part of this modality, how healing it is. So it's just drawing deeper and peeling layers so that people can create a more evolved, happy, joyful life. We do bring so much from our other expressions that we have been into our world. We don't even know why we are the way we are, why certain things trigger us, but your triggers are telling a story, most certainly. So I started doing the therapy, and then I decided, I want to say maybe 7, 8 years ago, I did the Dolores Cannon method. And that is where things shifted, where I was taking people to other planets. So that was a big shift from Earth lives, to now what's going on outside of Earth.
Okay.
And so that was a big shift.
Okay.
But before that, I also wanted to become a certified hypnotherapist. I'm sort of an overachiever and I wanted to learn more about hypnosis, not just being a past life practitioner, right? I wanted to do those 500 hours, and I became a hypnotherapist and a sleep expert for a while. Okay. So I did that, and that was really insightful. Although I don't do it anymore because the spiritual hypnosis really keeps me pretty busy. But that was really interesting how people have trouble sleeping. And it was so easy. Like I became an expert at allowing you to go, to sleep. And all it is, I'll give you a quick example. There was a gentleman that came to see me. He was in his 60s, and his wife booked this. She says, my husband, he gets an hour of sleep. He just cannot sleep. And there's so many people that are suffering from insomnia. They toss and turn all night and they just cannot sleep. And what it was with him is taking him back. All it is a worried mind. Okay. It's a worried subconscious mind, and he doesn't know what he's worried about that's keeping him awake. And I took him through to several scenes when he was younger, getting younger and younger. But the one that unveiled everything for him was he was 5 years old. His brother was 7. And their father came to him one night and gave them each a quarter. This was a long time ago. And he says, when you wake up in the morning, I'm going to be gone, because he was being deported. Okay.
Whoa.
So he gave them each a quarter, and they were like, wow. And it was like a big deal for them to each receive a quarter. He hugged them and they went to bed that night. And that's the last thing he heard. And so he was so enthralled with his quarter, it never really clicked that he has now been waiting for his father to come back. And what his mind is saying is, don't fall asleep, because what if he comes back? You might miss it. You might miss it. That's all it was, right? That's all it was. So it's a worried mind that prevents you from having a sound sleep. Yeah. So anyway, I kind of stopped doing that and just really threw myself into spiritual hypnosis. And then that has evolved.
When I was doing research for you, I was so blown away by your training. I mean, the names that you have, Dr. Brian Weiss, and I also spoke about him in the 2 books that I've read in part 1 of this series. And I love that you said, that gave you the therapy aspect, because of course that's his background. He's a doctor, he's a therapist. And then you have Dolores Cannon, another very heavy hitter in this industry. And so she took you to the different planets and the extraterrestrial. You also have Marissa Peer in there that I heard of and known. So I think that you're such a unique person for people to go to, because you have all these different perspectives and different philosophies that you can kind of pick and choose what works best for you and your clients and your style. Do you find that all of the different training, you kind of use a little bit of all of it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So I want to talk about an experience that you had that really like it's hard for you to forget. Like you'll never forget that experience or that story that happened with a client. And you don't have to say names. Obviously, I know that these things are confidential, but is there a story?
Well, not always.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If they
Not
give you
always
permission.
because, yes, because I do have the podcast. So they've given me permission.
Cool.
Ooh, that's tough. That is a really tough question to answer. I can't say that there is just one that has blown me away because there are many. There are so many. Well, I guess I want to touch on a sensitive subject of the power of this modality and how so many women struggle getting pregnant, right? And, it's not always black and white. And some that are open to this type of work, I had no idea that this was going to happen, but some clients will come to me and they'll admit, I've been afraid to get pregnant. My husband and I don't know. I don't know where this fear is coming from. Well, where do you think the fear is coming from? And I've even had clients that have endometriosis and it's all subconscious. They've given themselves this ailment. They create it subconsciously to prevent the pregnancy from happening.
Because
Isn't that
maybe in a
wild?
past life they lost a child or something like that, or like what would have happened in a
Yes,
past life that would make them subconsciously create that in the body.
that's exactly right. And so I can't tell you from how many women have had babies after their sessions because yes, as I'm moving them there, I take them to the cause, right? Where is the cause of this fear coming from? And they will either A, find themselves dying in childbirth. So they carry that again, it's like PTSD, right? They're going to carry that over and this fear is paralyzing. It really is. They feel it so strongly. Or others where they are seeing their children die in a past life and the pain is so excruciating. They never want to experience it again. So the subconscious says, all right, let's protect you. Let's protect you from never having to experience that again. And so after a session over time, they get pregnant. And so I've gotten some pictures of babies. And although, it's not something I can guarantee. This is truly, and I'm not the healer. I'm simply the guide. They are healing themselves simply by being open to revealing the truth.
Right. That's beautiful,
Yeah.
though. Something I was really fascinated by when I read Dr. Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters, was how he was healing Catherine by just making her aware of these past lives, just bringing her to these past lives and her seeing it and bringing her awareness and seeing the root. It was healing it. And so do you find that as well with people? It's like as soon as they see the root cause of where this anxiety or where this fear is coming from, they're able to let it go?
Yes. In many cases, it's instant or very shortly after a session, you become desensitized. Because now that becomes a memory. Whatever's revealed, you can actually see it like a memory. It's like the door stays open. And so now it's like anytime out of habit, perhaps, a pattern that keeps coming up. But what happens is if it comes up again, you're going to go, oh, no, 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 that's not mine. Right? That now I know where that's coming from. And then the body just naturally releases it. It's so interesting how sometimes in sessions, when a healing actually takes place, the moment they wake up, they have to go to the bathroom so badly. Like they can't run fast enough. I'm trying to unplug, like, wait, I have to unplug your mic
Right.
or tell them, if we're doing it online, it's like, okay, go, 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 right? Because it's so intense that they have to release.
Okay. So it's like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
going to the bathroom is like a physical release.
yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It is.
Is
It is.
is there patterns or things that keep showing up for you in sessions, or are all of them completely different?
They're all different.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, they're all different. People carry fears. You think about what your fears are. Fear of heights. I can give you an example of a woman that couldn't get herself to even look out a second story window,
Okay.
let alone a balcony. I will not go out there. And yeah, some things can be formed in your current life, but the majority is coming from somewhere else. And when I took her to discover where did the fear start, she found herself sort of in the 1940s at a carnival with her mom. They were walking around this carnival, and there was this Ferris wheel, and her mother gets the tickets, and she was very apprehensive. She was like, I don't want to do this. And her mom was laughing. So it's okay. We're going to have fun. So they get into one of those, little carriages. And, you know how you're sort of left up there for a while as they're letting people on and off. So sometimes you're just hovering up there for a while. It was so, so scary. But what happened was, this is terrible. I guess the parts were coming loose, as some carnivals are known for that over the years, that there are accidents that happen. And what happened was they were stuck up there for a while. So people started leaning. Everyone's leaning and looking down, and all that leaning compromised the equipment. And before she knew it, the seat just went sideways, and her mother is gone. And she is hanging on by like a pole.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
she could not hang on very long. And she let go, and she's a little girl. This is how she died. So this has now created a fear of heights that again is paralyzing in her life today. And again, you just become desensitized to it. Once you see it, it's like, okay, this is not going to happen again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're able to let go. But fear of heights, claustrophobia is another big one, where some people can't enter even an elevator. They take the stairs all the time. I had a client that she found herself in ancient Egypt as a very young pharaoh's wife. She was probably 13 or 14 years old, and the pharaoh dies. And during this dynasty, she was unable to live. There cannot be a queen that was a female at
Mm.
that time. So they don't just execute you. It's like they're going to put you in a crypt alive. And she knew she was going to suffer in this crypt and die a very slow death. So she paid one of her servants to come in, do the deed. Okay.
Okay.
But the servant was caught by some of the guards, and she was killed. So she was put in the crypt, not just the crypt, but covered. Yeah. So it was very, very difficult. The suffering was extraordinary for her.
Mhm.
And this is what created the claustrophobia today. Yeah.
Wow. And do
Yeah.
you find that when people have these past life experiences and these memories, that they are healed of these phobias?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's really amazing that people just continue to carry it, right? So let's talk about a very broad word, anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety became just completely out of control in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's such a buzzword, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
such a buzzword. It's like, oh, my anxiety, and oh, I have anxiety. And, one thing I learned about Marissa Peer is how we own it. When you're saying my anxiety, my depression, you're just calling it in. It's like, come home, right?
Mm.
But what is anxiety? What is it really? There's something triggering you, and it's usually fear. And it's really about learning fear of what? Let's discover that. Let's uncover what your fear is and
Yeah,
stop owning it. Stop calling it in.
right.
So even if you don't know what your fear is, yet you are having these panic attacks or, these triggers, there is a root cause for it, and you don't need to carry it. You don't.
Yes. So people come to you if they have phobias, if they have fears, if they have anxieties, they have something just, they feel like something's holding them back in their life that they can't really explain, and maybe talk therapy hasn't helped. And so they come to you. Like, how do people find you usually?
The word of mouth, of course, just over the years, word of mouth, referrals. The podcast is global. The podcast right now is in the top 1.5% of global podcasts. So it's
Wow.
really reaching a lot of people. I have 2 podcasts now that focus on different types of hypnosis,
Mm.
which we can talk about later. But there's that. And of course, some people just Google and I'll pop up, and many will research and pop on your website many times. And even that can form anxiety. It's like, should I do it? Should I not? And they're back and forth. But know that when and if you are called to do this, what is stopping you? Right?
Hmm.
Just get out of your way. Don't let the fear get in your way, and know that your higher self is calling you
Hmm.
to do this. So,
It's a great point. What has doing this work taught you about why we are here?
mm, that's a great question. And, we are here for lessons.
Hmm.
I really dislike that word, right?
Okay.
I really dislike the word. We're here to grow, but we're here for these lessons. But to me, when it's said that way, it feels like a punishment.
Hmm.
We're here for lessons. I'm going to teach you a lesson. Yeah, I just don't like the way that feels. What we are here for are experiences.
Okay.
And it takes away that feeling of a punishment, because we are not here to be punished. And what I do know from the years of this work, and also doing the Life Between Lives session, which is a past life regression. And then the second half, this is Dr. Michael Newton's technique that takes you to the in between your lives. What's going on in between
Hmm.
when I transition? Because you don't cease to exist. You keep going. What's going on up there?
Mm.
So I love, love, love. That is my absolute favorite session of all, is the Life Between Lives. You are meeting your guides. You're meeting your soul family, your soul group. You get to know who is in it. They speak to you. They give you advice about what's going on here. You meet your council of light. We go to the Akashic records. There's so much in there. And then we also go to the pre-planning phase of your life in the celestial realm.
Hmm.
Like, okay, why did you become Paige?
Hmm.
Why did Paige choose this gender, this life? Why did you choose your parents? Where were you when you were planning it? And that's kind of like the final place that I take you. And what we have discovered in the in between is that you absolutely choose those challenges, and you choose the narcissist parent. You choose the abusive spouse. And it's all the experiences, not lessons. I don't like that word, but the experiences that you want to have when you come to Earth to evolve, to experience it, and how that is going to help you grow, how it helps the soul evolve, how you can go back and say, this is what I uncovered by experiencing that. The issue is when you stay in that marriage too long, that's when it's like you're beating yourself up. And we second guess, or should I leave? Some people do come to me. It's like, should I leave them? Should I not? Yeah, they're not going to tell you to do that. Even the higher self, it's like the higher self is going to say, we want to experience it all through you. So what are you going to do for the experience?
Well, that's an interesting thing, Mayra, because you're bringing up something that I've thought about a lot. This idea of pre-planning and destiny. We're meant to do these things. I was meant to meet my husband, or I was meant to do this thing, versus free will and making those decisions. So from your work and what you've experienced, what is the relationship in our life between destiny and free will?
Yes, quite a bit. And I'm speaking through experience right now, because I am one person that stayed in a marriage far too long.
Okay.
So I'm speaking from experience and how my soul has grown after leaving and how, oh, yeah, I stayed in way too long, so long that there was an intervention, a spiritual intervention. It was pretty bad. Yeah, like I heard a voice speak to me that absolutely, it was so powerful. It was leave your husband. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
In cases like that where, and you could be very intuitive like myself, where that voice, which by the way, I discovered through ayahuasca that it was me. It was like future Mayra talking, going back saying, your life is waiting for you. Okay. It's just so wild because I always wanted to know who was that? Who said that?
Mm-hmm.
This voice that made my eyes pop open and look like someone was right there. And so you do have free will. You can stay in it, right? Suffer the consequences of it. But here's what happened. And you stay and you stay and you stay and you stay. But when you do transition and you're going to be sitting with your guides, and what did you learn? What could you have done different? And when they're looking back saying, why did I stay?
Mm-hmm.
What prevented me? I prevented myself. Fear prevented me from leaving. And so I'm so proud of myself, of what I did, despite not knowing what your future is going to hold. And
Mm-hmm.
I had this beautiful future waiting for me, even though you can't see it. Like, what was it that Martin Luther King said? Like, the stairs are there, even if you don't, the invisible stairs, and you don't see it, but they are there. And I go back to that. And so, I'm sure this is going to touch people. If they hear it, they can relate to it. Many people can relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
No,
if I
yeah.
answered your question,
Well,
but
no, this is it. And I like that you were using like a real world example for this, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if you did exploration on this of pre-planning in between lives, but did you see, okay, I chose to meet him. That was meant to be. That was part of
Yes,
my destiny, right? Which was to be in that relationship. But it wasn't part of my destiny necessarily to stay for the rest of my life. I had
that's
that.
right.
I was meant to have that experience, but it didn't mean that I was meant to have that experience for the whole entirety of my life. Part of an experience that maybe you could have had and that you did have was leaving and experiencing what life would be like afterwards. But that bravery and that courage of leaving that marriage was also an experience of what you were not meant to, because there is this element of free will, right? Like you could have stayed in that marriage and stayed for the rest of your life, and your life would have looked completely different. So I think it's just so fascinating, this idea of destiny, pre-planned things that are meant to happen, and then how free will kind of comes into the mix for
Yes,
people.
absolutely.
And I can resonate with you with my own past life regression, because I remember when at the end, it was end of life and I left that life and you said, okay, your guides and your angels are here and you're looking back at that life and what do you reflect on it? And it was like, oh, that was a really gray life, but I chose to let the loss of my wife break me. I chose that, and I chose to become a drunk, and that was my free will. The loss of her was probably that destiny, that experience of that loss, that tragic loss, but the free will was choosing alcohol and just letting that break me. So we all have this element, what you've experienced firsthand, but also with other clients, is we have this element of pre-planning, of deciding certain things that we want to experience. Do you uncover that with clients where people are like, oh, whoa, I chose that? You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. And in most cases, yes. We don't always go into a past life where there's fear. Sometimes it is about relationships. Again, they're always going to show you what's relevant. The higher self knows where your pain is coming from. And sometimes it is relationships. I'll give you an example. This one really resonated with me. A woman came to see me, and her sister over the years never got along. Never. I mean, it was constant, but my client was always trying and trying. She was, I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
They were born in Jamaica and they're here in America and they live in different states. And She spent like 40 minutes talking about her sister. So I knew this was important to her. But she did have a QHHT session. And in QHHT, which is Dolores Cannon's method, we're going to move through at least 3 lifetimes. It's a pretty long session. And we saw the first life and there was no sister. Usually I think the higher self knows to show it, right? There was no sister. Second life, it was equally great, but we didn't find the sister in that one. And the third one, nothing. I was kind of letting her choose, right? Just trusting the process. And when I realized, wow, like they didn't show her anything about her sister. And I didn't want her to leave without having that closure. So I manually took her. Let's find out what is going on with your sister. Let's move to a lifetime where the issue began. Where is this coming from? And the next thing you know, she says, I am a white man standing on the porch looking out at my slaves. And so long story short, she was the slave master and her sister in that life was one of the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty brutal, the beatings and what took place. Her sister, who was one of the slaves, was a man who had a wife who was hung to make an example of her for stealing bread. So there was a lot of trauma there. And so, well, why didn't we see that as we move through some of the lives? It's because it's too painful. And her subconscious mind says, we're not going there. We are not going there. But we did. We had to go there in order to heal that. And some people might think, well, why would I want to see that? Why would I see something so ugly? Like for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was this drunk man. Why would I want to remember that? But there is a reason. Believe me, if the higher self thought it was too much, they wouldn't have shown it, right? So it wasn't too much. It was her subconscious mind saying, I don't want to. And so I'll tell you how it helps is when it was over, she said to me, my God, I'm always giving up. I just don't know what else to do. But this makes me feel like all I want to do is love her. All I want to do is make it up to her. I will spend the rest of my life trying.
Oh,
right.
right.
Because sometimes they would go 3 years not speaking. You know, she'd pull away and then she'd come back. But this made her feel like, no, I have to make this up to her. I want her to know how loved she is and how special she is.
That's beautiful. I was going to say, how can that help? Is it better if the sister would have come to see you because then she would have maybe had some closure or some understanding? But I think that's beautiful that it motivated your client to just keep putting in the effort and keep showing up.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So people come to you with relationship conflicts as well, like if they're not seeing eye to eye with somebody in their life.
Yes. I had one client that came in and said she didn't trust her husband. She felt, how crazy is this? I feel like he's going to kill me. Like there's a fear that he's going to kill her.
Whoa.
She goes, I don't know where this is coming from because I love my husband. I can't tell him that.
No.
But there is something that I'm always doing this, like turning and this deep fear that something's going to happen. Well, it's because it did. So we did discover that in the past life, he was the end. I'll just go to the end where he was chasing her down the street, chasing her, and he caught up with her and did end her life. And so, no, I'm wrong about that. This was a client that wanted to leave her husband, was kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, should I don't trust. They fought a lot. There was a lot of conflict. It wasn't a loving relationship. And so seeing it, why do they come back? Okay. So why do they come back? This man killed you in a past life. Why are you coming back? It's because the soul didn't learn in that past life to put herself first. Boundaries. There are many boxes that you can check, but putting yourself first. How much are you going to take? How much abuse are you going to take before your life ends? at the hands of this person. And it happens in this world. It's terrible, but it happens. And in this case, they showed her where that fear was coming from. And again, she has free will. I don't know if she left him,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think she was getting the message that she needed to put herself first.
Wow. We're kind of talking about it a little bit. And I think you mentioned this idea of soul family. You know, you meet your soul family. And I remember reading about it in Dr. Brian Weiss's book as well, of we kind of come down. And it sounds like from what you were just talking about that we plan certain things and plan certain roles with different family members. So have you experienced that in your work where people will reincarnate with the same souls, just playing different characters?
Yes, all the time, all the time.
So can you give us an example of that?
Yeah. So your spouse could be your child in a past life, or the roles are reversed. You could be the male if it's a female client. And I have male clients that are the female. So we're constantly changing roles. Sometimes the roles are the same. You'll look back and see that your children are your children, but maybe not all your children are there. If you have 4 children, maybe only 2 show up in the past life. There's always a moment where we connect with who these people are in your current life today. I do that in every session. So you're able to recognize who they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Have any of your clients brought back historical details that they have no business knowing, or they would have no way of knowing that? And then, has that ever happened to you before?
Well, I've had clients that are a historical figure. Can we talk about that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So most of these you can listen on my YouTube channel. They're all there. There's a big library there. But I had Molly Brown. And Molly Brown his name is Michael. He's a Broadway producer and photographer on Broadway. And he was obsessed with the Titanic. I mean, since a child, he was obsessed with the Titanic. And when we took him through his session, he discovered he was Molly Brown.
Okay, because I was like, who's Molly Brown? But Molly Brown from the Titanic.
From the Titanic.
Yes.
She was a real person.
Who's the actor that plays her in that movie? I need to Google it. Let me Google it. Molly Brown Titanic movie. Kathy Bates. Okay,
That's
so
it.
if you remember the Kathy Bates character in the Titanic, okay, tell me everything.
Yeah. Okay. You can actually hear the session.
Okay.
And he sees himself as a woman. And what was really interesting was touching on things that he did not know, right? I loved the part where, I'll just call he a she, because she was Molly Brown. When there was a knock at the door in the middle, she says, I get out of bed. I'm in my nightgown. And there's a man, and he's basically telling her to put on the life vest and to come out calmly. It was very, because that was first class, right? Calmly, please put on your life vest and come outside. And it's so detailed. I remember him saying, so I'm getting dressed, and then I even to the detail, like I think he says, and I grab a book, right? It's like, who knew? Who knew? And I'm grabbing a book and I'm walking to the door, but I forget my hat. So I go get my hat to put on my hat. And then she's walking through the hall and goes past a smoking room, and there's gentlemen in there smoking, and she's passing through. She does get on a lifeboat. She's pretty high up as it's going down. So just details.
Mm-hmm.
Her boat was not full at all. So yeah, he kind of goes through the whole sinking of it, what he experienced. But we keep going versus in the movie, you never really know what happened to Molly Brown, right?
Right.
But this was really interesting that when they get to New York in the session, I remember him saying there are a lot of journalists, right? A lot of reporters. Yes.
Wow.
And then I go to a hotel. I have nothing. Like there's no luggage. There's nothing. But I think money had to have been like Western Union so that she can travel. And what he said was, I'm hearing Denver. Like he's hearing Denver. If you look up Molly Brown, and I know this is all researchable, but he did not know this. Why would he lie? You know? And sure enough, that's where the train was going. She lived in Denver.
Wow.
But in the session, and you can actually, when you see it on YouTube, you can actually see him frowning and frowning and frowning towards the end. And he mentions to me that he has a headache. He's like, my head is really hurting. Well, we discovered that Molly Brown died of a brain tumor. So what was happening is that's called an abreaction. When your body is physically reacting to, I don't want to say it's like painful where it's like, I need a doctor, but that is an abreaction where your body is reacting to a memory of pain. And he was reacting to it. So that was the Molly Brown one, and it's pretty good.
That's very, very cool. Yeah, the interesting details, like you said about the reporters being there. Of course, they would be bombarded by reporters and whatnot. But yeah, you don't think about that and what happened to them afterwards and what life was like for the survivors afterwards. But so your client, a male, in his life as a male, he was very fascinated by the Titanic, so that when he found that out, that he had actually been on the Titanic, was it a bit of a, that makes sense as to why I've always been so drawn to this thing?
Yes. I actually interviewed him. So that's like a 2-part.
Okay.
Where you get to hear the session, and then I interviewed him. He was talking about how when he saw Titanic, his grandmother took him to see the Titanic when he was 7.
Okay.
And he watched it, and he had an opinion at 7. And he'll talk about that, saying, I remember saying, and he saw it multiple times, but several times he's like, no, that's not how it happened. He had an opinion about it. It wasn't like that. Yeah. So he was all about the Titanic. And I remember him having little boats and like a picture of the Titanic. And even every year, because he lives very close to Central Park, every year he would go to, is it John Astor? John Astor's grave, who went down with the Titanic. He was a very, very rich man. I think they owned the Waldorf Astoria. They're very prominent family. Whatever Astor died on the Titanic, he would go every year to that grave. As just a guy living in New York, like, why?
Right.
It's because he knew him, right? And in fact, dined with him as Molly Brown on the Titanic.
Oh my gosh. So cool.
I know, it's crazy.
So cool. I love that it was verifiable. Like he could then go and research her and see, okay, these memories that I had, it checks out. So fascinating.
Oh, another thing. When we arrived to Denver, I'm so curious. It's like, what happens when you get home? She was picked up at the train station by a young man who, she says, I feel like he's a son. But when she gets home, she goes to her room. And this is the first time that she cries, because literally the night before she was in the middle of the ocean, right? Having that experience. This was the moment where everything sort of just hit her, the impact of what had happened. And I asked for him, describe your room. Of course, I asked that question. I want to know, because I do believe that there are tours of Molly Brown's home. And there was a lot of red. There was a fireplace. He was saying, this is where the door is. He was describing everything, and he was able to verify all of that. Pretty incredible.
So cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Some of the others, just real quick, that I recall was Joan of Arc. Incredible session.
What?
Yeah. And yep, Joan of Arc. And what was really interesting is they don't know who they are. I saw the documentary. I'm going through this session going, oh my God, this woman is Joan of Arc. And she didn't know it. She was just flowing through this life, but hitting facts about Joan of Arc right up until the day she was executed. Also, Queen Jane Seymour.
Okay.
That was really interesting. She's the wife after Anne Boleyn.
Okay.
Who was the king's wife that he hung her, right? So she 12 days later, he married the Queen Jane, who gave him his first son.
Okay.
so interesting because she died shortly after giving birth. It's all there, all the facts, even having the son, the child, the death, it's all there. The apprehension, the secrets in the castle, like we cannot speak. She felt choking. She cannot talk. She cannot speak.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really, really interesting. Gosh. Oh, what else? Oh, Queen Elizabeth of Austria. Netflix did a whole series called Cece. They used to call her Cece. That was really, really interesting. My client is in Europe, lives in Europe, and she was, in fact, Elizabeth with an S. So, yeah, really, really great session.
Okay. So if anyone who's listening, you should definitely go find out if you were a famous person or a queen or a king in another lifetime. But I'm sure, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter whether you are this like high status person or this famous person or not. Like, it's all about the experience and the lessons and the imprints, right? I'm sure even with these other known people, they still probably had healing that they needed to go through, and that's why they were accessing those lives.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So I want to chat with you about, because you talk a lot on your website about higher self communication. And so do you, as a facilitator, do you notice a difference when somebody is connected to that personality versus when they're connected to their higher self? And can you talk about the higher self and what that type of connection is like?
Yes, yes. So there are 2 sessions available on my website that allow you to experience that, where you're going to see the past lives, but also connect with the higher self. And through that, we're able to ask questions to the higher self. And I would say that there are degrees because everyone is different. Their level of trance is different. Some are a little bit more on the ego side versus others that are fully letting go and allowing the higher self to embody. And that is pretty magical to witness. There's an absolute personality shift. There is a monotone that comes through. There's a lot of emotions as you're going through the past lives. And then all of a sudden there's this very calm and monotone voice coming through, but also how the energy shifts in the space, even if we're working online. The higher self is present. It is so vast, so big. And yeah, some of them are very, very serious because they really don't have personalities when you think about it. But one that was really striking was with one of the most popular sessions that I shared was called The Dragon Slayer, where my client went to a mystical world where he was a dragon slayer, but he was also considered an elite. He was a time traveler that was able to come to the future. Yeah, it was so incredible.
Okay.
I've always said this needs to be a show on Netflix. It was so entertaining, so magical and so entertaining. I would watch it. And, Josh is very gay and vibrant personality. And you would just laugh out loud as you're listening to him tell this story, right? Well, when we got to the part where he speaks to his higher self, there was this serious, almost a dull voice coming through that just shocked him. He was way in the back. He's in the background going, what is happening right now? Like even he didn't understand it, but it was just so noticeable. The contrast between him and who he is today and the higher self coming through. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Okay. And so do all of your clients connect to their higher selves, or is that them specifically wanting to do that?
No, I have to guide it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it is a specific session that is offered where we are able to do that.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I want to get into the alien abduction therapy and also the interplanetary lives and things like that. So you were kind of saying before that it first came in when you started studying Dolores Cannon's work. Is that how this all kind of came to be? Or talk to us about this like other mystical part of things.
Yeah, so actually the very first QHHT session, which stands for quantum healing hypnosis technique, the very first session that I did, my client, the very first life was on another planet. She saw herself coming out of a spaceship with a briefcase. And she's arriving almost like she's there's this mission, and there's this glass city that she's arriving to. There is something very important in this case, and she's there to meet someone. And the person she's meeting is sort of like this blob. She was in a body, humanoid type, wearing a white bodysuit. She felt there was technology on her suit, that she was wearing technology. And I was so curious, what's in the briefcase,
Yeah.
right? So I got her to open the briefcase, and what it was were seeds. Okay. There were seeds that she was bringing to this particular civilization to help them grow a particular, I don't know if it was an herb or a tree, but she says they're definitely seeds, and they're in these little glass bottles. The entire case was full of these seeds. So, but we went on to learn more about that, but it was the very, very first session. And now, to be honest, more than half of my sessions, my clients will, rather than go into an Earth life, they will drop into a life outside of Earth.
Do they
Yeah.
want to do that ahead of time, or it's just that's where they end up?
That's where they're going.
Okay.
That's where they're going. And that is where now, with this new Earth that we are in, this is the higher self now saying you need to remember who you are and where you really come from, right? And that is very, very powerful for the starseeds that are here, that are sort of sleepwalking, and they've lost their purpose, and seeing themselves and where they come from to remember their mission. That's the most important for them.
Do you ever go to future lives, or is everything only past life? Like past lives on different planets, past lives on this planet? I just have heard so many times that time is an illusion and it's all happening at once. Everything is now. So how does that play into this past life regression?
Everything is now. When you're dealing with the quantum, in the quantum space, there is no time, right? They don't have clocks, calendars. Who has that? We do on Earth. We measure time, but outside in the quantum field, there is no time. So this is the best analogy that I can provide you with past lives. Think of an octopus. They're very intelligent, right? Very, very intelligent. Imagine that the higher self looks and appears like an octopus. You have the brain, which is that higher self soul. And then there's all the tentacles. Let's say there's 50 tentacles. Let's just make a magical octopus. Well, what happens is the higher self says, well, I guess I want to have a life, and I want to call that the Paige life. So one tentacle is you. That is you. But then the higher self says, and remember, only maybe 10% of the soul is in your body, not 100%. You're too big. The higher self is too big to possibly fit into this body. There's no way. So it is so big and above you, right? So you are one tentacle. But then let's go ahead and, but I also want to have a life in the 1800s and lose my wife and be a drunkard. I want to have that experience. And so there's one tentacle there. So see how the higher self is experiencing all the lives all at once.
Okay.
It can choose any time it wants. And when I said earlier, when future Mayra came to me that's what happened.
Mm.
A future Mayra that exists because future Paige is living her life. And for that, they're like, I need to kind of go back and intervene. And so we do. There are parts of us that do help us to move. So that's the best analogy is every single tentacle. And they're not all on Earth. Some of them are on other lives. Some of them are in lower dimensions. Some of them are sitting in older Earth, a different version of Earth that is worse than this one. Some of them exist in higher versions of Earth. It is unlimited, unlimited, unlimited.
Your mind must constantly be blown every day. You're just like a explorer, discovering new worlds, new concepts, new planets, new timelines. So fascinating.
Everything is possible. It is.
Do you even get shocked anymore or surprised anymore?
Yes, but I have such a big heart to believe in all. And years ago when I started guiding clients and it's like, I'm in the water, I'm a mermaid. I believe in it all. I have had sessions where my clients are fairies and they're so beautiful these lifetimes. So I believe in all of it. I believe in the dragons and all of it because my clients go through it and these are extraordinary, extraordinary lives. And we can't just see through this lens, this small little lens of our bubble of Earth. It is so incredibly vast.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to the skeptics of people saying, oh, it's just their imagination or they're just making it up?
I don't say anything anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't say anything anymore. They're just, they're sleepwalking.
Okay.
And that's okay. That's their prerogative. I'm sorry that because you don't believe in something, that's not their experience. Oh, I see comments all the time because, I share snippets and little previews of my work. And, there are some people that are pretty nasty. And I just believe they have a pretty nasty life, to put that out there. So.
Were you ever skeptical about it yourself or wary about it? Or because you grew up in the household that you grew up, this was pretty normal conversation for you?
I was never skeptical. Anything my client experienced and however they saw themselves, because there's emotions that go, even if you are the mermaid or, the mermaids, some of them, may look pretty, but some of them are not pretty. And they've got the jagged teeth and but they are still a benevolent being. Okay. And, they, there was one recently that had like fins on my face. I am not pretty, right? I believe in all of it, but those are also very magical where they are shapeshifters. They're actually from other worlds, other planets, and they can all of a sudden shape themselves into a water being and be in the water. They're both. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And so somebody who was experiencing, say, a lifetime where they were a mermaid or a dragon or something, mystical that a lot of us are like, oh, that's made up or that's not of this world. And maybe it's not, right? Maybe they're accessing a different world. But why would somebody's higher self want to show them that lifetime and what healing is needed or that you've experienced? Is there a specific example, maybe with this mermaid example, of why they were shown that lifetime?
Yeah, for some of the mermaids, it's about family because they have colonies. So it could be about families and the family unit. There's also been war underwater and friction, and some people are like afraid to lose their family. It goes beyond. There's always imprints, but it's not always about fear. Sometimes they just want to show you the beauty and they want to it's not always therapy, right? It's not always like that. Some of it is just beautiful and they want you to remember the magic. I had a client that came in. She said, I love your work, Mayra. She goes, I don't want to see any alien stuff. Okay? She was very clear. And I'm like, all right. Let's just sit down. Let's just see what's there. Right. So her first life, Earth life. Her second life, Earth life. The third one, she was on a ship. And I named that session When Aliens Aren't Scary because she was so freaked out, but she did amazing. And the higher self is like, yeah, no, we're going to show you this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stop being so close-minded and stop it with the fear. I think that's what they're trying to change and shift her into believing and being more open. Not only was she on the ship, she was in charge of it, right? And it was such a fun session to listen to because the moment that, she's kind of seeing the ship and she's like, ew, ew, I'm seeing the back of their head, but she's doing it in a lighthearted way. It's not creating more trauma, right? She really was seeing it lighthearted. And at one point when I told her to kind of look at herself and look at your hands, what do they look like? And she was one of them. But they were on a very important mission. And this mission, the very first mission, they drop into somewhere in our world, hovering above a field of cows. And she says they project themselves. They're able to, all they have to do is think it, and they're on the ground.
Okay.
Okay. They can project themselves. And she says, and we're touching the cows and we're experimenting and learning. We're looking into their ears. We're looking into their eyes. We're realizing how docile they are, very sweet. But we also want to understand why humans eat them. What is it about their milk? So there was a syringe. She says, we're extracting liquid from them and we're going to take it back and we are going to test it. And so I'm so curious at this point, just asking all of these questions. And she then says, and now I'm putting my hands on it, almost like healing it. And I said, why do you do that? She says, because we just poked and prodded and we want to make sure that we are giving it love and peace and, gratitude for them because they're so sweet. Oh my gosh. It's like, yeah, they go back and now she's like, oh, we are so excited. And I said, are you going to see more animals? She goes, oh, yes. They are so excited. She says, it feels as if we are teenagers going on a joyride. That was the environment and the feeling of this mission. She goes, and then they go in the water. They go underwater. The ship goes underwater. We were not supposed to. Like, they were not allowed. They were told not to go in the water, and they did it anyway.
Okay.
So it was so much fun to see this life. So sometimes they're going to show you that. You may not look the same, but we also look like aliens to them, right? That's just how it is.
Wow.
But I think it's really just becoming more open-minded and stop being so, that little lens like I was talking about.
So it opens up people's perspectives, and maybe they were closed off or they were fearful about aliens or about different worlds, but then seeing this firsthand and having these memories would open them up to say, okay, maybe this is possible. Maybe there is life, outside of Earth. This is such a great segue. So your alien abduction therapy, did you have somebody come to you and they had these memories or these dreams of aliens and being abducted, or was it they just came to you for a past life session and they stumbled into this? How did it come about?
Definitely an experiencer, and chose me to guide them through it. And yeah, I've learned along the way. I treat it the same way, asking the same questions, but I'm very, very intuitive of what questions to ask. And I think that's what I'm known for. Is a lot of my clients say, I never would have thought of that question. Like, how did you get that? And, hypnosis really is, all it is a focus of attention. And so when I am guiding someone, I too am in a trance state. I'm really working with that higher part of me that's sort of feeding me, ask this, ask that. I know this now because several of my clients have told me that there is a pre-hypnosis audio that I provide my clients prior to the session. I think your sister did it to start to have experiences at home. It gets them used to my voice. It's just short. It's 20 minutes, but it's pretty powerful. And I cannot tell you how many clients have told me, oh my God, Mayra, when I'm doing your pre-hypnosis, you're there I see you at the bottom of the stairs guiding me. Come over here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're saying, you are here. You're helping me. But it's the middle of the day and I'm maybe working at my computer, but I'm also with them. There is an aspect of me helping my clients get ready. It's really, really incredible. I can't count how many times over the years. So there is a Mayra that is out there helping me.
So cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
So do you ever have people that are nervous that they're not going to be able to go under hypnosis? Or have you ever had it where you haven't been able to hypnotize somebody?
Every client has that fear. Every single client.
Okay.
So it's very, very normal. They're like, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if this is going to work for me, but it's okay. I get them there. Am I 100% there? No, 99%. Yes. But there's always some people there's fear, so much fear that they're blocking themselves because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I can't make you do anything. You have to allow it. And so there's no practitioner that will ever say that, but I will say that I have so many tools up my sleeve. I have back doors to go through. I try, and some of them will say, I don't even know how you did that. I don't know how you did that, but thank you. And they were able to get there. So
that's so interesting that you say every single person has it. It's like your fear isn't original. It's very, very, it's the most common. And yet you still hypnotize people. You still put people under hypnosis. You still access those past lives, even though they had that fear. So cool. I want to give you an opportunity just to talk about, we've talked about it throughout this interview, but the sessions that you offer for anybody who's curious and wants to connect with you. Can you let us know what kind of things you offer?
Yes. So it starts with past life regression therapy. After that, I offer past life, the Akashic hypnosis. So that's a lot of fun. You're going to experience a past life, and then we take you to the Akashic records to see little previews of some of your other lifetimes. And we have some fun in there because I get to ask you, show her a life as an animal, show her a life on another planet, show her her hardest life. What was her shortest life? What was her happiest life? So we get to preview some things in your book.
Cool.
I'll call it a book, but in your records. From there, there's, of course, the alien abduction therapy. Even for people that are experiencers, I would say go there. If you understand that you are not from here, I would go there to that session. Then there is the Life Between Lives, which we talked about. There is Dolores Cannon's QHHT. That's the only one that's done in person. All other sessions are available online and in person, but QHHT is only in person. And then I have the version of QHHT, which is my own version that is kind of collective of all of my teachers all in one. And that is called Soul Ascension Hypnosis. I also offer a mini 30-minute light language activation. I am a light language activator, and that's a lot of fun. In some of my sessions, you'll hear me channel light language to help facilitate activations and healing in people. Yeah, and I think that's it. I do groups. I was at one last night at a private club. Like 9 friends got together, and they just all got together in a suite in a hotel room, and we did a whole group past life regression. So I can do that online as well. You can bring your family and friends together in one group, and it's so much fun. So much fun to do.
And so are you regressing everybody at the same time, or do you go one by one? Okay.
No, everyone at once, but quietly. Everyone is sort of moving through their lifetimes separately on their own. And then we wake everybody up and everyone starts to share.
Beautiful. So when people want to connect with you, what's the best way to connect with you? And we'll have it all linked in the show notes, but is it Instagram and your website?
Yes, Instagram is at Soul Signs Hypnosis, and my website, soulsigns.net. And the podcast is Past Lives with Mayra Rath.
Perfect. Mayra, thank you so much for agreeing to this mini session, for
You're
doing
welcome.
your session with Maddie, and for sitting down for this interview. I really appreciate it. And it's such important healing work that you're doing. So I really encourage anybody listening to book in with you and have your own experience. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. Thank you so much for tuning in to Meant to Be Heard. If this episode resonated, please share it with a friend, rate the podcast, and hit follow so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at You're Meant to Be Here with a 2. New episodes drop Mondays. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you're meant to be here.